Good news, everyone! We've been bought by EA. That means you're getting this intro right now for free!
And then you could pay $20 to unlock the rest of it!
Or go back and watch 60 hours of all of our old episodes to unlock the rest of this one.
Because there's that many.
It's not that hard to do, and you'll feel a sense of accomplishment afterwards. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Nerdstrodamus. I'm Dr. Pence.
I'm Lambo.
And if you couldn't tell, we haven't actually been bought by EA, and you did not have to watch 60 hours of our old episodes.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone's dead hamster.
Anyway, but you can tell that we're probably a little miffed at some recent things that have come out about EA, specifically about Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Now, we haven't played a single lick of any of the current gen Star Wars Battlefront games. We're actually huge fans of the old ones.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people out there are. I mean, we played on PS2, we played on Xbox. It was a lot of fun. But when Star Wars Battlefront 1 for the current gen came out on PS4 and Xbox One, we kind of let it go because we felt there was a lot of content that was missing.
Yeah, we were cautiously optimistic because, you know, it was just exciting to have that kind of a game back again. But then when we found out there was just a lack of content, we sort of just, you know, it soured the idea of playing this probably really great fun game. And it just, there wasn't enough to really draw us in and keep us playing, you know?
Right. But at this past E3, EA announced Battlefront 2 and all the stuff that was going to come with it.
We were like super excited.
Particularly with the prospect of the way they talked about DLC. Now, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then they messed it up.
Mm-hmm.
But this brings us to our topic today, which is DLC in general, because it's a really hot topic with gamers. Whether you're hardcore, you're casual, whatever, DLC can split you depending on how it's implemented. There's a fine line.
Yeah. Now, it's changed over the years. It's kind of warped and changed, and, you know, even inside the last two console generations, really, we've seen a lot of different ways of implementing DLC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't know is where it all started.
Where did it all start, Pence?
It started all the way, not 2 generations or 3 generations ago, but back on the Atari.
What's like 6 generations ago?
I've lost count. But there was the Atari game line.
What is the Atari game line?
You would hook up to a phone line. I know. We're talking dial-up, and you.
We're talking. Yeah, wow. Like. Okay, keep going.
But you could pay to download a game onto your Atari and play it. Now, the issue was once you were done playing the game, that was it. And it was off your system. You would then have to pay again to download it and play it.
Whoa, okay.
This was the initial precursor to DLC because you were downloading content to play. Now, a lot of people think downloadable content, DLC, is just add-on stuff, but this was the start of it.
Yeah, well, that right there really isn't all that different from, like, an arcade game, right?
Yeah.
Because you pump quarters in the machine. It's a pay-to-play sort of situation, and unfortunately, gamers kind of forget that we used to pay per play. You know,
right, like microtransactions.
Yeah, like that. Microtransactions were the way a lot of us even knew and played video games back in the olden times.
Exactly, and now there's this stigma with microtransactions, which we'll also talk about a little later. But of course, the Atari game line spawned a couple of other services similar to that, like the Sega Channel.
I remember the Sega Channel.
I remember the advertisements for this.
Yes.
I'm sure we can show some pictures of it.
Yeah.
But
Nintendo also had a similar thing over in Japan as well. It never really made it stateside.
You know, because the Sega one did so well over here.
Yeah.
But the Sega Channel and the Nintendo Download Service both ran similarly off of a cable line, actually, like a television cable line. And you could download games that way also. And actually, there was a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger. Actually, it was almost a sequel. Which one was that? Was that Radical Dreamers?
That was it.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay. So you could actually download this game that was basically a sequel to Chrono Trigger and play it on the Super Nintendo. The Sega Channel, I have no idea what was on that one.
We'd have to check it out, of course. But nonetheless, it existed.
It did. But the first real DLC, downloadable content, came from a company called Cave Dog for their RTS game Total Annihilation.
I remember that game.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew it existed, but I was also not a PC gamer.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you know, I would always browse through the PC section of GamePro magazine, circa 1994, you know, is when I started reading. And Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we're all
I know.
Oh my god. Woo. But for their game, they actually released free DLC. It was new units. And it was free. It was just downloadable content. It just updated the game.
Just because you could hook up. And things like that continued a lot through that era with PC games. A lot of games got tiny little upgrades and
mods.
And mods.
I mean, a
stuff
lot
as
of
well.
games like Doom and Wolfenstein, there were mods. Not officially licensed ones a lot of time. It was just people messing with the code, but it was still kind of like DLC that we have now.
Like Warcraft and things like that as well back in the old days.
StarCraft, yeah.
Yeah.
But the PC was built for that kind of thing.
Of course.
Like, PC gaming was made for downloading content because you were hooked up to the internet.
And there could always be new updates to match, new changes in hardware design, of course.
Right. But then, the first console to really do it, and it's such a sad, sad story.
Yeah, but I remember looking at the port in the back and going, that's a funny shape. What's that? It was on the Sega Dreamcast.
It hurts. It hurts. Because the Dreamcast was such an amazing system with, like, the worst controller.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's been attempts at trying to make it worse.
There have. But the Dreamcast was an amazing system with a lot of amazing games. And it was the first console to feature DLC regularly. And, like, the first console to really feature online gaming regularly with like, Phantasy Star Online.
And just to basically make it broadband only as well at that point.
Right.
That was like one of the first situations where we ran into that.
I know, and sadly it was destroyed by Final Fantasy VIII and the PS2.
Yeah, on the same day.
Woo! But what really moved DLC forward, the one system that we have to thank for this...
I remember.
...was the Xbox. The original Xbox, because it had Xbox Live.
Yeah, and I remember just the idea of Xbox Live kind of creeped in. It's like you pay money, you have to have broadband internet access, you could play online with friends, and it just sounded weird. It was sort of bizarre to us because we were all so used to couch co-op, sitting there playing with friends in the same room. Yeah.
I mean, we grew up with Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and like you didn't get online. I mean, we even admitted, like with the Dreamcast, we didn't know what that port was for. It was so foreign and weird. And the Xbox, like, introduced it into, like, a main console generation. The PS2 did it then, the GameCube did it, but the Xbox really pushed it forward because you had games like Halo, Halo 2, Splinter Cell, all these games that you could download maps for.
I remember the first Halo 2 Mac packs we ever got. It was like weird magic, It
was like, oh my god, there's more to this game now.
Yes.
But that's what DLC was supposed to be. It was supposed to give you extra content. Like, you got the game. You got the full game. You got everything.
The operative word there is you got the full game.
The full game. And if you wanted extras, you could download DLC. And that's what DLC should be. And that brings us to what we're talking about right now. Because DLC should be extra content after a game is released. Right?
Interesting prospect.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, we just brought it up with Halo, Call of Duty. Games like that, like first-person shooters, will use it to add maps. Maps that weren't originally in the game that could be added in later. I mean, you didn't have to get them.
No, and really, really quickly, towards the end, towards the middle of the Xbox 360 generation, suddenly we started getting advertisements. Hey, we're gonna have DLC, Almost trying to like make it so that, you're gonna get the game, you're gonna enjoy it, but then there's also gonna be more to do afterwards that, inherently we understand we're gonna have to pay for. Yes.
Right, which that's going to be a problem because nowadays it's just expected that there's going to be DLC.
I know, and people even ask. And one of the most heartbreaking things was when I immediately saw, because, Super Mario Odyssey is still like in the air. I still breathe it and live it every day now. It's really good. But people were immediately like, oh, I want DLC for it. And I'm immediately like,
No! Just leave it alone. There's already like so many, there's 20 worlds, 20 kingdoms, and 900 moons in that game.
Something like that.
We don't need more. It's fine the way it is.
Yeah. And, I think I made the comment in our podcast that we'll put up at some point, of course.
Yeah.
That they when you beat the game, you get like the Mushroom Kingdom.
There's post-game content.
Yeah. And it's the kind of thing that if it were any other game, they would make you pay for it,
Right, because it's a throwback to older games.
And you even get the Mario 64,
outfit.
Yeah.
Right. So any other game nowadays would make you pay for that, but Nintendo's not. It's already on the cartridge. It's post-game content. But that's because And again, as I was saying, DLC should be extra content that you don't need. That's not like, I don't know, like extra multiplayer maps.
Sure.
Great. Maybe some extra fighters that were developed later.
Sure.
Great. New songs for Rock Band Guitar Hero, because that was a big thing.
Always a welcome.
Right, because I mean, licensing deals and whatnot, you have to get that. But a lot of games, their DLC now is like adding in extra missions.
Which kind of feels a little cheap because up until this, I'm not going to say this generation, up until probably the GameCube, PS2, Xbox era, that was the kind of stuff that you just unlocked by playing the game. You would play the game, and your reward for doing really well and beating it was more game, right?
Right.
It's just like a magical concept,
You had post-game content to do. But so I have a thing about DLC when it started to get really, really bad.
When did it start? What was the tipping point for you?
Well, one of the tipping points for me was, and this is a personal one, was the From Ashes DLC on Mass Effect 3. Because this was a DLC, you had to pay extra to get it, mission in the game that got you an extra character, and it was available at the launch of Mass Effect 3.
Now, we had already seen DLC for the Mass Effect series at that point, and we had even seen like extra character, extra story missions, lots of extra perks for getting it in Mass Effect 2.
Right, yeah.
But that one was a little bit burny, I remember, because it was like and there was even debate. Was it actually on the disc and then you only downloaded the DLC code to unlock it? Was that the case?
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see anything about it. No one knows if it was actually on the disc or not. But it was the idea that, like, well, this was ready at the time of the game. Like, why couldn't it have just been put on the disc? And BioWare says, well, it was being developed at the same time as the game, and, like, it just wasn't ready, so we had to put the code in. But then why charge extra? Why not just include it in the game?
Yeah, see that?
Because that's happened before, too.
That's a tough one, right?
Right. And, of course, it added a character that a lot of people were really excited for. It added a character of a race that had only been talked about through the whole trilogy. But one of the other worst ones, and this is where I think for a lot of people, they saw the DLC starting to slip. The Horse Armor DLC for Oblivion.
Now, originally, wasn't it a joke?
What do you mean, was it a joke?
Wasn't it a joke, the whole horse armor thing?
See, I don't know. I know it's real.
Yeah,
I know now it's real.
Yeah, and they charged money for it, and it's always one that sticks. I mean, there's memes about it. It sticks in people's mind.
Well, and the reason it does is because people did pay for it. It did nothing. It gave armor to your horse, which did not help protect the horse at all. It just made your horse stylish.
It was an aesthetical thing.
It was an aesthetic thing. Plus, it was expensive for what it was. I mean, it was just an aesthetic change. It was just cosmetic. And after 3 years, it was on the top 10 most or best-selling content packs Bethesda had ever released. So what does that say? That justifies it.
Yeah, of
so
course.
People can complain. They can say, "Oh, why would anyone buy this?" Some people did.
Yeah.
And that right there is what's causing problems with DLC. And about like the stuff on the disc.
Yeah.
There's another one. I'm sure you remember this one. Street Fighter X Tekken?
I don't quite remember exactly what the deal. I remember there was a hubbub.
There was a hubbub. It was, and you brought this up about Mass Effect 3 with From Ashes. The extra characters that were DLC were already on the disc.
And it just unlocked it.
Paying the money just unlocked the content you had already paid for.
That hurts. And, fighting games in general have irked me with the DLC thing for a long time now. Yeah.
We've brought this up multiple times.
I know, but it's become just such an issue now that I refrain from buying a fighting game anymore at all.
Yeah.
Until they put out the Ultimate Edition with all the characters that man, cost sometimes a game doubling price.
By the time you get all the characters, yeah, you've spent almost double what the game cost you to begin with to get it all. I mean, that's why we didn't get Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
Yeah.
Which is really sad because it's got Mega Man X and Zero and Sigma in it.
It was one of my games I was looking forward to this year, in the beginning of the year. So.
Yeah, I know, and there's already like DLC released for it.
It's too bad, yeah.
But like having the stuff on the disc and then charging you to unlock it seems just like microtransactions. Like you've already got it in the game, now pay a little bit extra.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a weird kind of way to, if we take the long view,
Yeah.
microtransactions have sort of always been a part of it, like we said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
none of them would be as bad as Evolve.
No. I didn't even play Evolve.
To get all the DLC would be something like a few $1,000s.
What?
Yeah.
Holy crap! Why?
Yeah, mainly because they would release these tiny little packs, and it was like armor sets, weapon sets, skins for characters, and eventually, like they put so many of them out, there was no way that you could afford them all.
But they didn't do anything, did they? Were they just cosmetic?
Most of them were cosmetic.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like. What's the point at this point? And that's the reason why Evolve, like, nobody really plays it. It's a dead game.
That's sad because the concept was cool.
Oh, the concept was really cool, and actually probably done even better in the Friday the 13th game.
Which is at times very broken.
Yeah, well, but it's still.
But it's fun.
It still handles everything. Just a tad better.
Right.
In personal opinion, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all in the past. So where is DLC sit now?
Well, we're at an interesting crossroads. There are some people who are clinging to the past of what DLC was during its heyday in the Xbox PS3 generation.
Where it's just adding extra content.
Yeah.
And then you've got other people where it feels like it's not adding to the game. It is what the game should be. So let's talk about the big one right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about EA.
Electronic Arts. Named in multiple occasions like the worst company.
Yeah.
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 So the thing is with EA, I have two examples of games I want to bring up that DLC microtransaction kind of deal. And the first one I want to talk about is Titanfall 2, which was
amazing.
It was amazing. It was my game of the year last year.
And it really, we did our first-person shooter, episode last year. We're not probably going to do one this year because there's nothing really of note to talk about too much. We'll see once Battlefront 2 actually comes out.
Destiny 2.
If we get yanked into actually playing it. But yeah, it was the game. Man, fun multiplayer, insanely hilarious and fun single player, and then the DLC
was completely free.
Yeah, but it came out slowly over the year, and some of the stuff they would put out in DLC was stuff I would be willing back in the Xbox 360 generation.
The biggest
to pay a lot of money for.
The biggest one was a huge surprise, and this was over this past summer, and that was the defense mode, like the generator defense mode or whatever that was.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was called, but like it was an entire new multiplayer mode, and it was like a raid mode.
Yeah, kind of like a co-op situation.
Yeah, and it was awesome, and it just popped up on the game for free.
Yeah, and we played quite a bit of it actually so far.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I think we're getting up there on the difficulty level. So.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and it makes me want to put Titanfall 2 like back on my list of like games of 2017 because I played it so much. It just keeps coming back. And again, the DLC was all free. The only thing you could pay for were the Prime Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they did anything other than like change the way you look.
Yeah, and they gave you combinations of abilities and stuff like that you couldn't get otherwise. It's nothing really hugely crazy. It's just, here's this if you'd like it. I don't think it really ever gave... I never really felt like I was ever...
No.
The only reason I would ever get my butt kicked in that game is because I was just like not as good as the people I was playing against.
Right. Mm-hmm. But then... on the other side of EA, is Star Wars Battlefront 2, which at E3 almost had us because they made the one announcement that we really wanted to hear.
Free DLC!
They were going to make all the DLC free again.
And knowing what they had done with Titanfall 2 made us feel rather comfortable with it. It was like, why not, right?
We were on board. We were so on board for it because free DLC... It wouldn't matter if like the original game wasn't technically complete or it was missing some modes or whatnot. It doesn't matter. The DLC was going to be free. But then things changed. Turns out that you had to unlock the characters, which is not a problem.
No, we've seen something similar to this in a favorite game of mine, Rainbow Six Siege.
Right. But in Rainbow Six Siege, when you start the game, there's a whole slew of characters to unlock.
Yeah, and you have to use in-game currency that you earn by just kind of playing missions and stuff to basically unlock them all.
Right. But the game also gives you quite a bit of currency in the beginning to unlock a lot. Because I remember when I got the game, I was way behind the rest of you.
Yeah, and you have to play through these single-player missions, and it basically gives you enough currency to unlock most of the characters.
I unlocked like 4 characters right away.
Yeah, and you can get all of them on disc without that much craziness.
If you play the game enough, like if if you actually play the game, it's not that hard to unlock all the characters. The problem with Star Wars Battlefront 2 is it would take, and the EA announced this, that it would take enough points. You would have to play the game for 40 hours to unlock big characters like Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and Yoda, and many others. If you're playing Battlefront, you want to play as the main characters from Star Wars!
Yeah, now the deal was you either play that much to unlock, those characters, or you
Pay
a
fee.
Yeah, and it just feels like gouging just a little bit at this point because they're characters that are definitely readily available.
They're on
the
disc, but they're treating it, it's a microtransaction, which is basically DLC that's already there, so it's not downloadable content. It's just there, and you have to pay to unlock it. So we're getting into microtransactions, but still, like, you're giving us free DLC. Why are you doing this? And
they would argue that, you can unlock everything,
They did say that, and they also said that you would feel a great sense of accomplishment whenever you unlocked a character. That comment...
I'm sure you would.
Oh, I'm sure
you would.
I would also be really angry, but they posted that comment on Reddit. And congratulations, EA. You now have the most downvoted comment in Reddit history. Because you said that. You didn't address the problem right away.
Right away.
They did address it. And currently they have backed off after the downvotes.
They caved like little babies. I'm just hanging it. They caved like little babies.
But hey, people are still, they're still happier about that, but there's still a lot of people out there who are boycotting this game because it's not fair.
Yeah, now, once again, there's bad tastes in mouth just because... we would like to just play the game, like Battlefront 1 and 2, the old ones are, some of the best games of their generation. And I know that none of this really affects like the single player campaign that they talk about.
But we would play that for the multiplayer. We would play that game for the multiplayer. But even still, they backed off, and now it's going to take 1/4 of the time to unlock one of those characters. So instead of 40, it's going to take you 10 hours of gameplay.
Which, it is sort of like as much time as it would take you to unlock any of the DLC characters in Rainbow Six.
Which is true.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, that's not that big an issue. I'm sure they would sink 10 hours into it, no problem. But I'm not getting the game. I'm not getting Battlefront 2.
Yeah, it really just kind of sours the whole thing. It takes the fun. A game is supposed to be something that you, just like enjoy. You play it because you love it. And this creates this kind of weird sense of, man, I have to sit there and I have to grind. And grinding in, especially a game like this just isn't fun. Like, where's the fun in it? You know?
It's...
How about getting good at the game? Like, why can't there be a, I think about, like, the way Smash Brothers used to handle their like, extra characters, until they started doing DLC as well, which, is going to be one way or the other.
Yeah. Paying is fine, but make it easy to obtain at least.
So we stand at an interesting crossroads. We look into the future and we see companies trying to stay afloat, trying to make money. We see, especially AAA developers, definitely being more creative with the way they're implementing DLC nowadays. It's not the money grab that it obviously was for a few years in the middle there.
No.
And we are seeing definitely bang for the buck happening. But at the same time, as prices on everything in the whole universe goes up, it's inevitable that they're going to want to have to line their pockets just a little bit.
It's understandable they want to make a profit and they want to make a return, but don't get greedy. Don't do microtransactions on top of the 60.
Don't gouge.
Don't gouge. But, and I think it's a lot to ask that we want a Titanfall 2 again, where it was all the DLC for free. That was more than we could have asked for.
Yeah.
Splatoon and ARMS, again, like free DLC. That's a lot to ask for. But don't be Battlefront 2. Don't give free DLC, but then make it so difficult to unlock the in-game stuff that you might resort to paying for it.
Yeah.
Even go back to do seasons like Rainbow Six Siege or even years like Destiny. I don't think that's that bad.
No.
But don't do horse armor. Don't release stuff that's on the disc that you have to pay to unlock.
Loot crates where the things actually matter.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, I know. But Overwatch did it right. Splatoon and ARMS are doing it right. There's a lot of great games out there. Implementing DLC in the way that we would prefer.
Right.
And until everything, crashes down on some of these companies for doing the wrong thing, I could hope in one way that, like, fan, response to something like this would actually change things.
Well, it did. It did for Battlefront 2.
I would prefer it did it with the money. It would
Right.
be. I mean, we're all now we're patiently waiting to see what will happen to Battlefront as it actually releases, and if it actually will affect the way the returns work.
So what do you all think about DLC? Where do you stand in all of this? I mean, not just on Battlefront 2, but DLC in general. Let us know in the comments below.
And tell us maybe what your favorite DLCs were, the ones that were actually worth it, right? Ballad of Gay Tony, Lost in the Damned.
Oh yeah, on Grand Theft Auto 4. I mean,
all the Doom stuff. Update 6.66. There's a lot of good examples out there. People doing amazing things.
Cloud on Smash.
It's pretty worth it. It's pretty
Bayonetta in Smash.
It's so cool.
But if you want DLC for this episode, I don't know. Do we have enough extra content?
We probably do.
We probably do. But we don't do that. You got all the content here right now.
It's on disc.
But we're Nerdstrodamus, and you can find us everywhere on the internet at
Nerdstrodamus.
Except for Twitter. We're Nerdstrodamus DL.
We'll get it back one day.
Yeah, well, we never had it.
We'll get it back one day.
We're taking it back. But we hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave a comment below. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that stuff. But for now, I'm Dr. Pants.
I'm Lambo.
And we're going to go play some games, probably something that is not Battlefront 2.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, click subscribe. Also check below for the links to our Facebook page, Twitter, and blog. Check back often. We'll be posting new videos weekly.